Okay, this is a great time to start. Good evening and good morning, Unicorn fam. Welcome to the Crypto Unicorns post-launch AMA number 9 with Aron Beierschmitt, Crypto Unicorn CEO and co-founder. After a week-long wrangle with the Shadow Corns, your girl Sparkly Unicorn is back and better than ever before. I'm joined by my amazing co-host, Witty Unicorn. Say hi.
Hey.
Thanks. This is the post-launch AMA number 9, where you can ask your questions regarding anything and everything crypto unicorns. Of course, we're still continuing to take on and handle in-game issues and edge cases, as long as you submit a Zendesk ticket for them on lagunagames.zendesk.com. Again, that's lagunagames.zendesk.com. Check the Zendesk Guide channel under the Knowledge Base category for more information on how to create a Zendesk ticket. Hey Witty, I heard a rumor. I heard Aron's gonna tell us something. You heard about that? Let's go. It's Aron's Alpha Quarter, everyone.
Thanks, Barkley. Let's dive right in. On the governance front, we have 2 draft proposals that are going to be hitting the forum in the near future. One involves a community member's proposal to begin doing a kind of regular RMP market analysis report. Part of this is kind of our ongoing effort to continue to have more community-generated content around game meta and strategies. The second is a custom marketplace proposal from a group that is responding to our product requirement doc. They kind of looked at the community feedback and response to the first proposal from our partners Moonstream. And I think they've taken into account a lot of the community's concerns on that front. And so I'm pretty excited to see the response to this second custom marketplace proposal. From there, of course, our governance council is going to watch the forum discussion closely and then be looking to vote at our next meeting as to whether or not these proposals make it up for an official snapshot vote. I'm very excited to have this new process in place and be testing it over the next couple of weeks. On the treasury management front, we'll be looking to deploy the strategies that I mentioned in our blog post from a few weeks back over the next 7 to 10 days. The Dune Analytics Treasury Dashboard, which is now in the white paper, I mentioned last week, will be kind of the one-stop shop for all information related to the Treasury, both the Polygon Gnosis Safe and the Gnosis Safe on Ethereum mainnet. Beyond that, you can also expect that we'll be producing quarterly reports just to ensure maximum transparency on that front. On the data observation side of things, we kind of uncovered a really fun data point that I thought was pretty compelling. The Rainbow Marketplace in-game has actually driven over $5.5 million in RBW volume. That actually accounts for the price of RBW and USD daily since launch. So even with a rather drastic decrease in token price, the fact that we've driven 5.5 million in volume is very, very impressive, especially from the perspective of roughly 2,000 DAO. Again, I think it speaks to a pretty compelling economic design that with growth, shows some real promise. We've also seen over the last week that Unum kind of for the first time since launch has trended slightly inflationary by about 100,000 Unum a day. Not something that we see a cause for concern around, especially with our next feature release right around the corner and further tuning and design meta changes that will be coming along with that update. On the customer support issue resolution side of things, huge shout out to that team and everyone kind of helping on that front. We decreased the number of unresolved tickets by 47% in the last 7 days. The number of tickets per day coming in is also down 51% from last week. And the median response time on tickets has decreased by 33% from last week. I'm very happy with these continued trends. It means obviously we're resolving issues far quicker. There are far less issues coming in on a daily basis. And as I mentioned last time, we have a new CS tool shipping with the upcoming feature release, which will arm that team, our CS team, with kind of the weapons that they need to further improve that process. So again, huge shout out to everyone helping on that front. And then as I've kind of been teasing the last few times, obviously I continue to work on our roadshow deck. It includes a bunch of, I think, very exciting announcements. They'll be coming in early August along with our first CGI trailer. We've been really heads down on a bunch of different things. I think it's going to be an incredibly exciting set of announcements for the community, kind of across the board, both on marketing and the growth side, as well as kind of furthering and taking the IP in new and exciting directions. As I've said before, I plan to present that deck live on an AMA, so the people that can make that will be the first to hear all the juicy deets, and then we will all be responsible for going out and broadcasting that wide to the wider world. That's it for the upfront stuff. Sparkly, I'm ready for questions.
All right, thank you so much, Aaron. I'm so glad it's your job to share all of the alpha because I'm absolutely bursting with all of the stuff that we have planned for the community. I'm so excited. All right, so let's just make a quick note for everybody who's thinking to ask questions related to game issues. The friendly team over at the mod support channel can assist you too. As much as possible, let's make the most out of this time by asking questions that only Aaron can answer. But truly, any question is okay. To accommodate everybody's questions, we have a 3 questions per person rule. We want to talk about so many things, but we have limited time. This new rule should help everybody be a bit more intentional about their questions. If something's been answered previously, you'll have to ask something else. If you like somebody's question so much and you want them continued, please hop in and finish the job for them. Here's the AMA mechanics. If you want to ask a question, please press the request to speak button. The button looks like a raised hand. You can queue up even while somebody's talking. Once we accept your request, you'll see a green bar at the top of the Discord. Click accept to begin speaking. We'll choose people one by one so everyone has a chance to ask. Once you're unmuted, feel free to ask your question. We also have questions from shy and busy unicorns. It's on the AMA questions channel. Take note that we prioritize spoken questions over written ones. So if you have a written question and you're not sure if it'll make the AMA, please press request to speak so you can ask it personally. If you see an interesting question on the AMA questions channel that you want an answer to, why not step on the stage and ask the question yourself? Okay, so right now the crowd is still warming up. Let's get a written question ready.
No worries. This one's from Quan. Do you plan to launch a standalone application instead of a browser game? Don't you think it's a good idea to develop jousting mobile application right away for adoption purposes?
All will be revealed in the coming weeks. I think there's no question that we want mobile applications. There is a question around what form they take and what battle loops and features they encapsulate. We obviously have people who play on mobile today in the browser. That would be a better experience with a native experience. There's no question about that. So yeah, there's no pushback on our front with releasing mobile versions over time, and we have plans in progress to do that. It just might not take the form that the community expects initially, and I'll leave it at that.
Ooh, cryptic. All right. Let's have another question, Biddy.
Okay, this one's from GD Verse. Can you give more information about jousting, please? Is it still stats based on RNG, or how does it the arena or field affect the battle?
Yeah, at the end of the day, the jousting runs on a deterministic simulation, and so it is going to take various inputs, such as the unicorn stats, things like the class of the track, and then over time, as we layer in additional features such as weather and track condition, there will be additional variables that get counted towards the ultimate outcome of whether or not you're going to kind of win or lose a jousting match. The player experience is, you select an upcoming event, you see unicorns that have already registered for it, you decide which event your unicorn is going to be, has the greatest chance of success in. You're going to assign them to that event. Once the queue is full, that event will kick off and run live. When it's running, it's basically a bracketed jousting tournament. And there will be, of course, over time, different tournament sizes. So just for purposes of example, let's say we have 16 unicorns entered in this tournament, right? You're going to run the first round. One unicorn will move forward, right, all the way till, through the semi-quarter, and then, of course, the finals. The matches themselves, the unicorns kind of march out and kind of strut about, and then you're going to have a series of rounds. They charge similar to any, medieval jousting tournament. They're going to charge at each other, and then there's, of course, a chance of a miss, a chance of a hit, a chance of a glance, a chance of a knockdown, a chance of a knockout. So there's a bunch of different potential outcomes depending on a number of factors that will occur. You're going to kind of have anticipation build. You'll have the moment of the hit. You'll see the results of that, whether it was a miss, a glance, a hit, a knockdown. In the case of a knockdown, there is a chance that the unicorn gets up or doesn't get up. So there'll kind of be this moment of, people screaming at their corns to get up. In the case they're the ones that got knocked down. And then, of course, in a knockout, it's TKO. It's, you're done, and the winner moves forward. In the event you go all 3 rounds, there is a scoring system, and ultimately the unicorn scoring the most points wins. I can tell you the lead designer on the system is a big fan of MMA and UFC. So it should be a lot of fun. And then I've mentioned things before about additional systems we probably are likely to layer in over time, such as things like burn cards, which would be consumable items that give buffs and debuffs going into these tournaments that can be applied and leveraged to increase the strategic depth of these tournaments while not forcing players necessarily to have to sit there and like Twitch react to certain things. So I hope that's helpful context on jousting overall. We're actually very close to kind of releasing the first set of animatics, above and beyond. Obviously, we're teasing a lot of concept art right now, which really looks great. As I've kind of said before, we're much further along than we appear if you're just checking out the Twitter feed. So I'm excited for more visuals and video to come out in the near future, showcasing more of jousting.
I too am super excited. So, everybody, it's time to get your cords up with the power of friendship. Remember to treat them right so that they'll treat you right when it comes to jousting. Okay, let's have another question, Witty.
Sure, it's another one from GD Verse. Have you seen Mark Cuban interview regarding play to earn? Is there a plan for Laguna Games to partner with third party to help stabilize the play and earn aspect of the game? Sample Loop is burning or buying Unim using brand ads revenue.
The short answer is certainly yes. I mean, we're open to all forms of partnership that are going to bring value. Is very interesting. Obviously, we have a bunch of arenas. We have a bunch of things that are going to get live streamed kind of 24/7 as they kick off, both in racing and jousting, that do have some natural fit for ads. I mean, what I'm going to always be pretty resistant to are like the clickbaity, I don't want anything that looks like a pop-up ad. Rewardable video from mobile, I'm not so much a fan of as well, and I'm not sure there's enough of a market there to drive value. But I would say that Decentral Games, also on Polygon, has done a really great job on that front with their branded partnerships. They had a casino launch, I believe, with Mountain Dew that was pretty epic looking. And obviously that brought value into the treasury. But it's important to hear me say value into the treasury. I think some of the ideas of ad credits, burning tokens, and things of that nature are weaker, shorter term solutions versus, again, trying to drive value into the treasury so that we can further develop, build, and expand the overall IP. But no, I see a lot of avenues on that front and would be very excited to engage in partnerships of that nature.
All right, that sounds great. So, for a very specific sector of our market, no, we will not have hot single coins in your area popping up on the game. Just no. All right, let's have another question.
Okay, this one's from Illist. I remember in one of the AMAs that the reason behind the on-chain transactions being that complicated is to kill the bot users of the game. Now that it causes a lot of bugs and problems in-game, does the old reason still outweighs the problem it brought to the game? Do you have any plans to lessen the transactions to at least one per evolving, breeding, and or hatching?
I've been watching a lot of the discussion around this. It's important to understand that we're improving those flows drastically, that the next feature release includes a number of improvements on that front. And again, we built it this way very intentionally. We have documentation that is public around why we do things like airlocking. I've seen like, why do we force that for corns to farm and all this kind of stuff? And at the end of the day, allowing you to have a unicorn listed on OpenSea and have the ability to sell it while it's still on the farm, it creates a massive headache for our server to reconcile that, figure those things out. And so we created a structure that was going to accommodate for that and simplify the work. And there's no question, and we are certainly not denying, that the flow remains rather brittle. I hope with this next feature release, people see a very drastic improvement in that flow. It's kind of the first part of a multi-stage or multi-phase rollout of improvements that eventually get to the point where you can kick off multiple breeds and evolutions across multiple nurseries, even in a chance that one of them gets stuck. You're not getting blocked from gameplay and things of that nature. So, on that front, there's just a need to kind of wait for these releases to come out and these improvements to be made, but it is literally the primary thing on our blockchain and server engineering teams' minds. And again, there's no question that the experience is in drastic need of further improvement. But I would ask the community, there's a little bit of trust extended there that we're taking the path that is going to work longest term and kind of accommodates for all the different potential scenarios that you have as assets are getting transferred back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So things like batch loading in of land, batch loading in of, or locking in of corns, represent improvements. Stash in will be a drastic improvement. For anyone who hasn't used the Moonstream tool, that is a publicly available free tool for stashing RBW and Unimin. It works great. I love using it. So again, if you're frustrated by not being able to stash in enough RBW to make a series of market buys, like Moonstream has already built a tool that enables that. And if the CM team isn't broadcasting that heavily, we should start that today because it's a fantastic experience that's been vetted by our team at this point. So again, the blockchain transactions are brittle in their current state. They've been drastically improved. I would also point out that we've not had a single Shadowcorn hatch fail. So again, as a community, recognize the enormous improvement that shows relative to where we started with the game launch in May. And one of the primary reasons this damn release is taking so long to ship is because of all of these improvements to the blockchain flow and the extra QA that's kind of going against that. So that's kind of my general statement on the state of our blockchain transactions. And again, it's top of mind. It is in progress. We'll start to see drastic improvement with the next feature release. And then the feature release with questing, of course, includes further tech debt and optimizations that will continue to improve things.
All right, on that Moonstream link, as you can see from General, the CM team is on it. And for anybody who wants to access the link, it's on the pinned messages. So that's play.moonstream.to/game/crypto-unicorns. Just click the pinned messages under General, and you'll be able to select their tool. All right, next, let's have another written question. Ready?
Okay, this one's from OX Delta. For upcoming hatching egg events, if there would be any, or opening of loot boxes, can we introduce a mechanism to generate better stats or better rewards for folks who hatch or open faster?
That's an interesting idea. Yeah, I'm not sure I've got more of a comment off the top of my head. I need to think about that a lot more. I'm sure there's a billion ways that could be gamed. And, I doubt we would ever do something that would retroactively benefit players, but there's some interesting things in that. Maybe we do a loot box open leaderboard or something. I'll think about it with the design team.
Thanks,
All
Aaron.
right.
There's a follow-up question to that from OX Delta. And if there
Yeah.
is a unim burn or revenue generation via RBW associated with such events, do you think this will help the situation of unhatched eggs or egg hoarders who are not helping the economy?
Generally, I think, at least as far as unicorn supply is concerned, I don't see hoarding of eggs. I haven't really checked how many Genesis eggs remain. I think it's got to be close to 500 or less at this point of the original 10K. The Shadowcorn eggs obviously have been slower, but they have a far higher unim cost. Well, they actually have a unim cost that's pretty high to hatch. And I understand why some people are just waiting on staking prior to hatching on that front. So it's kind of my expectation that with the Shadowcorn staking minigame, obviously, if you don't hatch, you're now missing out on the opportunity to equip and prepare yourself for Act 2, as well as the potential rewards that come along with Shadowcorn staking. And so I'll be really surprised if we don't see a drastic uptick in the number of hatches that are the number of Shadowcorn hatches that occur. And, I want to see a very significant chunk of those hatched. Otherwise, yeah, they're not adding value. They're not participating in the ecosystem. And we might have to look at using governance God mode to do something drastic on that front. But I think over time we've seen that based on what we saw with the 10K Genesis eggs and the Dark Forest, I expect something very similar with the Shadowcorn eggs and the Shadowcorn staking minigame that comes out. So I'm not stressing it right now, and I understand why people will be a little bit slower on hatching the Shadowcorn eggs, just given the Unim expense on that front. But it is something we watch, and it is a KPI that we monitor very closely.
All right, thank you so much. Next up, we have L. Please come over, L. Hey,
Hey, good morning, everyone.
good morning.
So, quick question. I was wondering, do you guys plan on ever, what is it called, like increasing like breeding time instead of going from 24 hours to maybe like 3 or 4 days or 5 days? Or yeah, that's it. That's actually my main question. Like, when do you think once we'll hit like a certain goal of unicorns, we'll be breeding too fast and we'll have to like nerf that?
Time delay to me just kicks the can down the road. If there's really a concern of oversupply or of the amount of breeds that are kind of occurring. So I think we would probably look to adjust cost and use that as the tuning lever to balance or slow down, right? We increase cost, the friction goes up, the number of breeds slow down. I mean, we definitely saw that with the last tuning update when we increased the cost of Evo, for example. It was just very clear to see the tightening on that front and the reduced amount of, the decrease in velocity of new corns being bred and evolved. So yeah, the time delay stuff to me doesn't solve the issue. Again, if it's 7 days, if it's 14 days, you're just kicking the can down the road. If we really find that we're getting into an oversupply situation, we'll have to look at tightening or increasing costs to, I think, tighten the or increase the friction and slow down the velocity of new corns being minted. So that's kind of my off the cuff response. L, did any follow up on that?
No, answers my question.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, L. Next up, we have Sigarian. Hi.
Hey guys, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, how's it going?
Great. How are you?
Doing good. I actually just had a question about the Shadowcorns. They look great. The release of those guys, they look fantastic. I'm just curious. Is there any plan on making maybe like generative parts to them, or maybe to the minions that are gonna come out later?
When you say generative, you mean things like equipment, or do you mean actual like parts like the unicorns have?
Yeah, like randomized parts for like the body, the face, and all that. Or
It's
was that?
possible, but I think we're going to lean more in the direction of things like equipment. And obviously, as they get ascended, they will change as well. And so, you'll have way more, I guess, visual variety than you currently see with respect to those. And then, the minions are going to be pretty varied and different, and also have their own upgrade systems. And so I think the combination of all of that will lead to kind of a really nice visual variety in the marketplace.
Cool. My other question was about the current state of like, I guess, building upgrades. It looks like, I mean, well, a lot of us are kind of holding back from going past maybe like level 5 or level 6, just due to
Mm-hmm.
I guess, the advantages of going that high in levels for buildings. Have you guys like considered ways to get people to maybe try to level up more of their buildings?
Yeah, that was a topic of kind of a primary topic of the last couple of design syncs and economy meetups that we've had internally. And I do think the design team has a number of ideas that you'll start to see in the next tuning update with the next feature release that's going to help incentivize players to reach the higher levels. You're absolutely right. We see that, exactly in data. People are pretty much at level 5 and then tend to wait. And the good news is we have, I think, a number of really solid ideas on bonuses and other things that occur at the higher levels that will incentivize further grind on building progression.
Awesome, thank you. Just one last thing, I just wanted to give a shout out to LG Corbin. I know everybody here is an LG Andy fan, but I'm all LG Corbin because he's awesome and he fixed my issues a couple of weeks ago.
Well,
And
that's
lastly,
fantastic. I don't think he's actually attending today, which is rare. But I'll make sure that shout out gets broadcast internally. He'll be happy to hear it.
yeah, awesome. And yeah, the I have actually used the Moonstream site for stashing tokens into the game, and it works great. I know a lot of people want to do that, so I think everybody should just go check it out if you want to try that website out. But that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for coming up. Yeah, I mean, a huge shout out to the Moonstream team. They continue to just ship great tools, and it again speaks to this space where we don't have to build every single thing that the player community touches, right? And it's another really good example of how, we're going to continue trying to bring on more partners to help accelerate not only game development and a bunch of other fun stuff you'll hear about in August. But tools development and things of that nature. So, yeah, a huge shout out to that team, and definitely use that tool.
Thank you so much, Sigarian. Right up here in general, we have tons of people saying thank you to Corbin, Andy, Jared. They are the best. They've gotten a lot of people unstuck from breeding and other nursery issues. Thank you so much to the SC team and to Corbin and Jared and Andy and everybody else who. All right. Next up, let's have another written question.
All right, before I do so, there's actually going to be a fast talk segment with Corbin, so be on the lookout for that, guys, on Twitter. So, next
Ooh.
question. I'm actually so excited for that. So next one we have Ditch's Revenge. Hi guys, would it be ridiculous to add a player skill element in jousting, like a manual mode using mouse and keys to aim or dodge in the future? Asking as adding a skill element would appeal to a larger player base.
It's definitely something that we have considered. I think there's a lot of trade offs on that front. What kind of game play experience are you trying? Are we trying to go after? Um, the challenge is if you add skill to it that forces you to be there real time, you're going to limit the amount of players that have the opportunity to do that relative to something that is more passive. And as I've kind of explained it before, each battle loop has a different kind of intended audience, and jousting was always intended to be relatively passive, with over time more strategic depth layered in via things like burn cards, right? So you can like Twitch stream the event without being there and needing to really, really focus and kind of pay attention. Racing, it's still a little up in the air on exactly how we want to go about implementing that. I think the general message to the community is we do not want anything that feels generically like racing sims that are out today. With Team RPG and other things to be revealed, like those are the active real-time skill-based loops. And so it's kind of a balancing act. And I still think that jousting should be more passive. That's just kind of my product opinion on it. But then again, I have kind of a lot more context on how we're planning to encapsulate or produce skill-based battle loops. And again, all will be revealed in the first week in August, and I think give a lot more context to like why we're leaning towards being more passive with jousting versus putting some more real-time skill-based mechanics into it. But it's definitely something that we have considered. I mean, CSR on mobile, I think, is a really interesting comparable. Obviously, that was a race car, kind of a drag racing game that had these like twitch mechanics on you, obviously trying to get off the line quickly, accelerate, quickly and kind of time the manual shifting of the vehicle and things like that. And I think you could do something similar with like twitch kind of mechanics in a jousting form. But again, there's going to be many battle loops over time. Some will be very, very skill based. Some are going to be more passive and strategic. And I still think that the right direction for jousting is to be more passive and strategic in the grand scope and kind of plan of everything that we've got going on.
All right, that sounds super exciting. Uh-oh, B. Liller said, first week in August, a date has been spoken. Yes, but only just this once. Don't get too used to having dates, Unicorn fam. All right. So in case you've been abducted by the Shadow Corns and you've been kept in the dark forest under a rock, the treasure hunt is back. For this edition, we get to meet the different Shadow Corn classes and witness the havoc that they can cause to the Unicorn multiverse. Ugh. Well, I'm not planning to become a ghost corn anytime soon, especially at the hands of these nasty shadow corns. But if you dare to go on a journey for glory and riches and become one of the few survivor corns, make sure to join the beginning every Sunday at 5 a.m. UTC. Next up, let's have another written question. Witty?
This one's from Nakagata. Could you give your vision about in-game economy right now and the principal problems that you see? Can you talk a little about most important KPIs that you guys are looking to manage economy to give us a wide view about this?
Sure. I guess across the board with Unim, we're looking to maintain a very kind of net deflationary and getting that down to a point where price comes up a bit on the open market, and we just kind of focus on from there maintaining it a very stable delta between the amount that's being minted and burned. I mean, again, we've already burned over 73% of the supply that we've granted, and really up until this past week, it was deflationary. Even the net, even going net inflationary this past week, it's been by a few $100,000. So it's still relatively minor and very much under control. And with RBW, the big KPI is obviously net inflows into the treasury, which show more buying in the RMP marketplace than selling. That's a very important one. We've obviously maintained that in aggregate, which is great to see. So those are two primary KPIs that we're kind of looking for Obviously, treasury inflows via secondary and primary sales are one that we're watching closely with land vending machine and you needing to take a keystone, put a little bit of ETH against the bonding curve to mint a new plot of land. We'll start to have primary treasury inflows again, in addition to secondary inflows. So that's another important KPI because that's effectively revenue into the treasury, which funds obviously future growth and development of the IP and everything that we're kind of trying to build. Just generally, we're kind of in this interesting spot in that, we're not having a ton of new wallets per day in terms of growth right now. And, if you think about most projects in the space have kind of gone through this like meteoric growth period. And I've explained this before in that you get away with a lot in a situation in which you just have a ton of new DAO coming in every day, with new entrants into the system, buying assets and things. Economies get, they go up and to the right and everything looks good for a while until you don't have new player growth. And at that point, they spin apart and, ultimately collapse. And I think there's some very interesting things to look at in what we've done with this MVP thus far. I've said things like 5.5 million in RBW volume via the Rainbow Token Marketplace. That's a phenomenal number with roughly 2,000 DAO, right? That's a truly phenomenal number. Where again, the end result wasn't a $5.5 million USD exit from the economy. It's actually been net into the economy, net into the treasury, net into the game bank. And that's I think, a really important thing to consider. Another really important thing to consider is the extremely high amount of utility. Yes, we've had a lot of breeding, but I ask the community to point out a project that has the vast majority of the NFTs being utilized in the game loop every day. That's something that I think does differentiate us relative to other projects where only a small subset are going to be relevant to whatever the meta of a single battle loop happens to be at any given time. And so that's another thing that's like very, very interesting to me. The fact that like 1% or so of the supply of unicorns is even listed on the store is very interesting as well, and something that we kind of watch, that we watch very closely. And so at the end of the day, I'm looking at this and I'm like, from an MVP perspective, where we launched a game, we haven't had this like meteoric growth, and we've maintained a relatively balanced economy and experience, like with Unum being net deflationary over the period of time by a pretty significant amount, RBW net inflows into the game bank and the treasury, like all of that stuff is phenomenal when considering that we don't have a ton of growth. And I think it speaks to our ability to better balance and maintain and manage an economy during the transitional phase. And this is like, to kind of summarize it, because I've said this before, I view economic growth in these games in three phases: the growth phase, the transitional phase, and the maturity phase. We haven't really even hit the growth phase yet. We're kind of in this like primordial pre-growth phase place where, again, we've inflated the supply by 5x, but the vast majority of those corns are going to work every single day. Like, that's something very special that is a differentiator in the market for us. With growth, great. I think we will see things rebound kind of across the board relatively quickly. If you think about 500 corns being listed right now, that's 250 new players who want 2 corns, right? Like, it's a pretty interesting situation to be in. And what goes down fast comes up fast in low liquidity environments, kind of across the board. And then when we enter the transitional phase, I think we've already proven that we can maintain balance without this massive influx of new players. And that's something to really keep in mind as a community, and I think is a differentiator and speaks to the economic depth of the system. And the fact that people are willing and excited to grind it out and progress land and continue to breed and evolve. Like, all of this stuff shows and points to us being able to better manage the exit from the growth phase. Like I'm less worried about the growth phase because we've kind of seen time and time again that projects can go through these moments of growth, but again, they ultimately hit a period where that growth tapers and they fall apart immediately. And that's where I think we can already look at this initial test and how we've managed and balanced the economy in a very low growth scenario in a brutal bear market as a really positive sign that we can exit the growth phase into a transitional phase, um, and then on into the kind of maturity phase of the economy. So that's a great question to bring up. I hope that is some helpful context in how we think about um, where we're at and kind of where we're headed in terms of the overall game and ecosystem economy.
Thank you so much. That was so deep. I feel like that answered a lot of other questions that people wanted to ask. Okay, so before the next question, Unicorn fam, are you Team Shadowcorn or Team Unicorn? Let us know in the Great Corn Showdown on Twitter. Right now, it's Heart Unicorn versus Soul Shadowcorn. Will the Soul Shadowcorn take over everyone's hearts? Or will the Heart Unicorn save everyone's souls from evil? It's up to you, Unicorn fam. Head over to Twitter, check our pinned tweet, and follow the directions to win one of 5 mythic loot boxes. Okay, next up we have a question from Urinal Bowl. Regarding the login, is there a change in implementation? It just feels like the loading time for the game has been longer. It's as if it's not being saved locally. Every time you refresh, it looks like it loads the whole thing again, not like last time. Um, uh, did we change anything with the login?
Nope, not to my knowledge. Make sure you're not on privacy mode because you would be dumping your cash every time. No, not to my knowledge. We perhaps are front loading a few more assets, but that would only affect the first time user load experience. So no. And I've not really seen that reported. Maybe I'm missing other reports of that. But yeah, um, to my knowledge, we did not change anything that would affect loading.
All right. Okay, that's great to hear. So, if anybody's encountering any issues like that, please make sure to submit a ticket. Check out our Zendesk guide and please head over to lagunagames.zendesk.com to submit a ticket so we can take a look at the system. But for now, we're not really seeing a lot of reports on that. Just make sure to let us know if you encounter any problems. Okay, let's have another written question. Ready?
Alright, this one's from Island Girl. There is a level indicator on corns. Will there be a progression feature coming out for leveling up beyond level 1 for unicorns?
We do have plans for leveling systems within various battle loops. I think they'll likely be specific and tied to those battle loops and something that isn't being memorialized on the NFTs themselves, so that you kind of have to, grind your way up, even if you purchase a high stat corn, things of that nature. So yeah, we are very interested in applying systems like that. But I think they're going to be very specific to the individual battle loops that you happen to take your unicorns into.
All right. Okay, next up we have Nakagata. Nakagata wants to say hi, but right now he's traveling, so he can't ask the questions himself. He has 3 questions. The first one is, could you give your vision about the in-game economy right now and the principal problems that you see? Can you talk a little bit about the most important KPIs that you guys are looking to manage in the economy to give us a wide view about it?
Didn't I just answer this one, Sparkly?
Huh. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, this one just got answered.
Sorry, I thought I was crazy. I was like, I'm pretty sure I didn't just dream a whole rant about that.
Yeah.
But happy to answer any follow-ups if there are.
No, it's the exact same question. Sorry about that. Okay,
All good.
Betty, can I have another question?
Sure, I think it's a question everyone's been meaning to ask. Do we have any updates for delegation system?
Yeah, I mean, we have several guild partners that are either proposing their own solutions to that, as well as there's a number of these rental lending marketplaces that are hearing from guilds that they want this feature, not just in our game, but basically in all games. And so there are several providers on the table right now that we're evaluating. And it's in progress, especially the larger guilds. It is a bit of my they should be the ones to build these systems because they need them in all games. And so rather than every game building some individual custom experience to tailor to the guilds, especially with the narrative shift in the industry certainly away from play to earn, and even, now play and earn's getting a lot of flack, and, maybe we need to start calling it play to own. I don't know. I'm kind of tired of the constant narrative shift in this industry. We're just going to keep our heads down and keep building. So yeah, we have several partners. NFT is one. I'm actually blanking on the name of another one that NDGG is wanting to partner with. I'm very interested in a solution that is white label, that anyone, from someone just trying to put together some friends and family to help farm corns, all the way up to some of the larger guild operations, that there's kind of this one size fits all group. Brian Akakar, our CMO, is leading the partnership discussions, and Katrina, our product director, is kind of helping ensure that the product kind of need is being met. And so, yeah, there has been a lot of progress on that front. But as I've stated before, we're very focused on having this be supported by an external team that is basically making this their 24/7, 365 mission to provide these tools to guilds, which I generally think is a much better path for this space than every single game dev creating a custom feature to try to accommodate the guilds. And a huge shout out to all of our guild partners who I think have been very willing to kind of get in the trenches with us on this and chart a path to a solution on that front. And again, I think kind of the white label one size fits all solution is going to be best. And so we're really trying to find a partner that's going to do that. And I think it's a rental marketplace that allows you to basically rent out an NFT at no underlying cost, right? And of course, people have asked for a rental marketplace, and this would enable that as well, especially for the battle loops, which I think is a lot more relevant for. And so, yeah, I think good progress on that front. More announcements to come from Brian in the near future.
All right,
Right?
thank you for that, Aaron. All right, let's do the follow-up questions from Nakagata. This is the second question.
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys thinking about bringing competitive to the game using the existing possibilities? In my opinion, competitive with some skill or complexity could bring a lot more fun to the game, even in a farm mode.
I would challenge that the farm mode is already highly competitive from the point of efficiency and strategy relative to what you're producing in trying to sell into the RMP marketplace. I do think we're going to continue to tune and balance things that in a way that force people to be very strategic in order to um, hmm. The farm sim is highly strategic, and if you want to be competitive with respect to your ability to buy and sell place, we've already seen that be highly competitive, where a very small subset of players is doing okay and a larger chunk are kind of break even, and then there's a larger chunk that in my view, are just grinding it out and worried less about that, which again is the path to sustainability for this entire industry. So it's good to see that in the data. Um, the battle loops are where the competition is really supposed to happen in the short to kind of midterm. And then as the what starts today as a farm sim is not going to be a farm sim a year from now, 2 years from now, right? The shadow corns entering the unicorn world, tribes, and those features are going to make the land gameplay more and more strategic and less oriented around just grinding out, berries and commodities. And the economy sim that revolves around the RMP marketplace will still be very important, but there are going to be um, I mean, we've already announced things like raids. Like, you're going to have to work together to defend your lands or take the Shadowcorn route and try to raid lands, right? Or play both sides in an ever increasing amount of social complexity, especially if you're kind of playing both sides. So the battle loops to me are where corn should go to be very competitive, where players, are going to be very competitive. Most of the battle loops are exclusively PvP. There will be more announced on that front that, again, have loops that have higher skill, that are highly competitive, that are real time in nature. And I think that's very, very, very important. So I don't know if that fully answers the question on that front, but um, I view the farm sim already as a highly competitive and adversarial environment, just generally. And we plan to layer on top of that with the Shadowcorn raids feature. It will get more and more directly competitive. I guess most of the stuff I'm talking about with the RMP marketplace is like the economy sim and how that is somewhat indirectly competitive, especially if you're one of the people trying hardest to produce an ROI off the sim, right? And again, we're going to orient a lot of that towards the Shadowcorn Unicorn War with tribes. You can begin to band together and prepare for that, build out things that look a lot like defenses and other things that I've teased with respect to decorators and props. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, maybe a stage as big as the internationals for this competitive games. Yeah, I'm all for that. So lastly, Aaron, this one's the last question from Nakagata. Most crypto games that have a huge growth have a good narrative that explain why the game will succeed. And this works as a bridge to people to bring more people with good narrative. What is Crypto Unicorn's innovative narrative in your opinion?
It's been in the white paper on the first page since day one, and it's the desire to build a generational IP around this brand. The Roadshow deck in August is going to be, I think, a step function of, well, that's not the right way to describe it. It's going to, I think, really surprise people at the number of announcements, at who we're working with, and for me, it is the first major step on that massive journey that is that crazy audacious goal of creating a generational IP around this brand and around this game. And um, I think it will put us at the forefront of the space in terms of a group that's moving very aggressively along a number of different vectors to create um, value and excitement around the IP itself. Um, and so I think we all recognize that we don't want to be a game or an ecosystem that is trying to attract people exclusively looking for ROI. I think everyone in the space recognizes that. Again, it works great during, to drive an initial growth phase, and then we've yet to see a project actually transition out of that into a maturity phase that hasn't led to some form of economic collapse. And there's a lot of open questions around projects that have kind of already been through the boom and bust cycle as to whether or not they're going to be able to kind of take a next step on that front. Um, And so coming back to us, like, we're not just a game, right? We're a media company, we're a brand, we're an IP that I think is very, very strong. I think we can all look at the unicorns, even the shadowcorns, and look at these things as assets that have emotional resonance and have really sparked something in people and generated like genuine emotional connection above and beyond many projects in the space. And so again, I hate playing coy, and I'm going to have to do it a couple more weeks as we line up and finalize the roadshow deck, and lock down the remainder of the announcements that we're going to be kind of making, these partnership announcements that we're going to make. But I think after I reveal the roadshow deck and we begin broadcasting that broadly to the community again, I think it will establish us as a project at the forefront of the space in terms of embracing and trying to aggressively grow and expand the ecosystem and the IP beyond just gaming necessarily. And so, yeah, I'm excited about that. It's certainly something that is very, very important to me, and I think sets us up for the growth phase in a very, very nice way, because it will signal to the wider market participants that we're here to stay. We've got this incredible roadmap and this incredible set of partners coming on to help accelerate our vision again down a bunch of different vectors that aren't necessarily exclusive to just adding new game loops and things of that nature. And I want people to look at this IP and go, I love the look of these corns, and oh wow, look at everything I'm going to be able to do with them. Like, hell yeah, I want to participate in this community and be a part of it. And it lines up nicely. The advantage of a bear market is the barrier to entry has never been lower. And I think we can really show with this kind of roadshow deck, like where we're headed as a community in a way that's going to be a very natural attractant to new members, which is very important overall.
All right, lots of new exciting stuff for everybody. It's just going to be a couple more weeks, Unicorn fam. We hate leaving you like this, and we'd love to share the news with you, but just hold on for a bit longer, all right? This concludes our post launch AMA number 9. We'll see you next week for the post launch AMA number 10. We're going to the double digits, baby. We'll post a recording of this AMA on our socials if you would like to give it a real listen. Don't forget to share this with your friends and fellow Unicorn fans who couldn't make it. If you have more burning questions, feel free to reach out in our support channels, the Mod Support channel and the Ask the Dubs channel. This has been Sparkly Unicorn with your co-host, Witty Unicorn. It's good to be back. Good morning, good night, and see you in game, Unicorn fam. Thank you so much.
Woo woo.
Ooh, ooh.
Oh, woo!